Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm really glad you're here. As we get started, take a moment to tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far this community reaches. Now, let's jump right into today's story. I had maybe 3 minutes before the champagne toast ended. My fingers trembled as I creased the corner of the menu card, tucking the handwritten note between its leather folds. The paper felt too loud, too visible, like it might scream the truth before I could deliver it. Around me, Casa de Cristal pulsed with the quiet arrogance of old money. Silver clinked against bone china, subdued Spanish murmured between tables, the rustle of starched linens against velvet chairs. Outside, Madrid's autumn rain streaked the windows in rivulets of neon and streetlight. But inside, the air was golden, heavy, intoxicating. I crossed the marble floor toward table 7. Fernando Lucero sat with his back to the massive arched window, the Salamanca district glowing behind him like a kingdom he owned. He looked like power wrapped in civilization. An angular face, dark eyes that missed nothing, tattoos crawling up his neck from beneath a tailored Brioni collar. His left hand rested near his wine glass, fingers tapping a slow rhythm against the white tablecloth. Beside him, Elena Vega leaned close, her manicured hand on his forearm, whispering something that made her painted lips curve into a perfect smile. Her emerald necklace caught the candlelight, scattering green fire across the damask. She looked like a woman celebrating her engagement. She wasn't. 15 minutes ago, I'd watched her plan his downfall. The wine cellar at Casa de Cristal wasn't actually a cellar. It was a climate-controlled vault 1 floor down, all exposed brick and amber lighting that made the bottles glow like stolen treasure. I'd been sent to retrieve a 1995 Vega Sicilia for table 12. I was weaving through rows of Rioja and Ribera del Duero when I heard voices. Female clipped, speaking rapid Catalan. I froze between the priorats and the vintage reserves, my hands still gripping the bottle I'd been reaching for. Tala set, Al Costat del Vidre, table 7. By the glass. My Catalan was service industry basic at best, enough to know when someone wanted their steak rare versus well done. But I caught the essentials. Table 7, the window, lest, ready, posici, position. Then I heard Elena's voice, cold and surgical, switching to Spanish. When the quartet starts the second movement, give the signal. I want it clean, no witnesses. The bottle nearly slipped from my grip. I knew that voice. I'd been serving Elena Vega all evening, watching her play the role of devoted bride-to-be, her hand never leaving Fernando's, her laughter bright and perfect. And now I understood why the men at tables 4, 9, and 11 weren't eating, why their eyes tracked every server, why their jackets hung just loose enough to hide the weight beneath. The restaurant wasn't a celebration, it was a setup. And the only man who didn't know was the one everyone in Spain called El Matador, the man who survived to conflicts, 3 attempts on his life, and a decade of rivalries. The man whose tattooed neck bore the scars of a fight in Seville. The man who trusted the wrong woman. I pressed my spine against the wine rack, my heart hammering against my ribs, my mind calculating. I could walk away, pretend I'd heard nothing, let the city's underworld sort itself out the way it always did in silence. But something about the way Fernando had looked when Elena kissed his cheek earlier, something vulnerable beneath all that armor, made me fold a warning onto a scrap of paper instead. Now I stood at table 7, menu in hand, danger folded inside. Buenas noches, I said, my voice steadier than my pulse. May I present tonight's specialties? Fernando glanced up, bored, expecting the usual recitation of artisanal ingredients. Elena's smile didn't waver, but her eyes cold, calculating tracked my every movement. I opened the menu with practiced elegance, angling it so only Fernando could see the torn edge of paper sliding free. Your fiancé betrayed you. There in position, his eyes flicked down, just once. No reaction crossed his face, but his fingers stopped their rhythmic tapping. They went absolutely still. That is when I noticed what I should have seen the moment I approached. The men at the surrounding tables weren't holding menus. They were adjusting their jackets, checking sight lines, and waiting. The string quartet in the corner lifted their bows. The second movement was about to begin.
Fernando proposed to Elena on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean, where the Costa Brava met the sky in a line so sharp it could draw blood. He'd chosen sunset deliberately, golden hour for a golden lie. You make me believe in something other than survival, he'd said, slipping the diamond onto her finger. The ring had belonged to his grandmother, the only woman who'd ever loved him without calculating the return. Elena had cried. Real tears, he'd thought then. She'd pressed her face into his chest, her shoulders trembling, and whispered, "I'll never leave you." He'd believed her because he'd wanted to. Because men like Fernando, men with blood under their nails and ghosts in their rear view, were always desperate for redemption in the shape of a beautiful woman. What he hadn't seen, Elena stepping away to photograph the ring, the metadata sending GPS coordinates to a server in Medellin. The way she'd angled her face just so, letting the dying light catch her tears while a drone captured the footage from 300 meters out. She'd been cataloguing his vulnerabilities since their first date. The way he always sat facing doors, his mother's grave in Salamanca that he visited every month, the fact that he kept a go bag in every property except the villa in Ibiza, because Ibiza was where he felt safe. 6 months of playing the devoted fiancée while she systematically mapped his empire. Every dinner party was reconnaissance, every tender moment intelligence gathering. She'd learned which guards were loyal, which were greedy, which had families that Ana Rios had 3 rules for survival. Keep your head down, your past buried, and never get involved. She'd broken all 3 the moment she slipped Fernando that note. 6 years ago, she'd been Interpol's youngest tactical analyst, the woman who found patterns in chaos and turned cartel networks into spreadsheets. Then Marseille happened, an operation that went sideways, a blown cover, her entire team executed in a warehouse while she listened from the van outside. The agency had offered her a desk job in Brussels. She'd offered them her resignation. Madrid was supposed to be invisible. Waitressing at Casa Carmesi meant disappearing into the architecture of wealth, another face in the machinery of service. She'd gotten good at being nobody, at moving through rooms full of dangerous men without registering as a threat. But habits die hard. She still clocked exits, still noticed when tactical boots peeked out from beneath tailored trousers, still recognized the particular stance of men carrying concealed weapons. When she'd heard Elena speaking Catalan in the wine cellar, muscle memory had kicked in. The old Anna, the analyst, had immediately started mapping the kill box, sight lines, firing positions, the architectural vulnerabilities of Table 7. She could have walked away. Should have. Fernando Lucero was responsible for God knows how many bodies, his empire built on cocaine and corruption. But she'd also read his file back in her Interpol days. She knew what the Medellin cartel did to their enemies. Knew that if Fernando died tonight, Madrid would drown in a gang war that would kill dozens of civilians caught in the crossfire. And maybe, deep down, she recognized something in his face when he'd entered the restaurant, that particular exhaustion of a man trying to walk away from violence, and the wine bottle exploded first. A 1982 Vega Sicilia, €6,000 of Ribera del Duero vaporized into glass shrapnel and purple mist. Fernando moved on instinct. His hand shot out, catching Anna's wrist as he rolled sideways, dragging her down as the table flipped up to form a shield. The heavy marble top caught 3 rounds, spiderwebbing but holding. The sound flooded back in, screaming, chairs scraping, the quartet's violinist still drawing his bow in shocked muscle memory, before someone tackled him to the floor. "Stay down," Fernando hissed, his grip on Anna's arm like steel. His other hand had already found the Glock strapped to his ankle. Another shot punched through the window behind where his head had been seconds ago. Long range. The shooters weren't in the restaurant. They were positioned across the courtyard, exactly where the note had warned. Fernando's eyes swept the room with predatory precision. The exits were already blocked, not by obvious gunmen but by diners who'd stood too quickly, too coordinated, hands reaching inside jackets. Elena was gone. Her chair pushed back, her champagne glass still sweating condensation onto the tablecloth. She'd vanished the moment the first shot cracked, not fleeing but clearing the line of fire. "The kitchen," Anna breathed. "Service tunnel to the street." Fernando's gaze snapped to her. "How do you?" Questions later, move now. Another volley shredded the upholstery where they'd been sitting. Fernando grabbed a fallen chair, hurled it toward the closest false diner, then dragged Anna toward the kitchen entrance. She moved with him, not behind him, her footwork too. The kitchen was chaos. Chefs diving behind prep stations, soup boiling over onto tile, someone sobbing in rapid Portuguese. Fernando and Anna crashed through the swinging door, and he immediately scanned for secondary exits. "There," Anna pointed to a narrow door marked Bravado near the walk-in freezer. They were halfway across the kitchen when Fernando heard her voice over the tactical radio of a downed gunman. Elena speaking perfect Spanish now, all traces of her soft fiancé tone stripped away. "He's headed for the service level. Seal the Cal exit. I want him boxed in." Fernando's blood turned to ice water. She wasn't coordinating from a distance. She was here, in the restaurant, wearing comms like the operator she'd apparently always been. Anna shouldered the service door open, revealing a cement stairwell descending into darkness. The emergency lighting cast everything in sickly green. They plunged down, their footsteps echoing off concrete. Behind them, boots thundered in pursuit. "How long?" Fernando asked, his breath controlled despite the sprint. 30 seconds to the tunnel, 2 minutes to street level." The service tunnel was exactly what Casa Carmesi didn't advertise. A relic from when the building had been a Francoist headquarters, designed for discreet exits when revolutions made front doors inadvisable. They ran through darkness broken only by scattered utility lights. Water dripped somewhere. The air smelled of old stone and rust. Elena's voice crackled again from somewhere above. "I need confirmation. Is he dead?" A pause. Then another voice, male, American accented. "Negative. Target is mobile." "Then make him immobile, Carino. That's what I'm paying you for." Carino, my darling. The same pet name she'd used for Fernando 100 times. Now deployed, the grate opened onto an alley behind Plaza Mayor, rain-slicked cobblestones reflecting neon from a late-night farmacia. Fernando hauled himself up, then pulled Anna through, his hand steady despite everything burning inside him. Madrid had always been his city, every street a tactical advantage, every building a potential safe house. But as he oriented himself, his mental map started shredding. His phone buzzed. Not a call, a notification from his security system. Villa in Chamartin, breached. Apartment in Salamanca, breached. The warehouse in Vallecas where he kept clean passports and emergency cash, breached. Elena hadn't just coordinated tonight's ambush. She'd spent months preparing to erase every escape route. "We can't stop," Anna said, already moving. She'd somehow acquired a fallen guard's jacket, was pulling it on to cover her distinctive uniform. "They'll have the metro stations covered. We need—" "The old aqueduct," Fernando cut in. "Segovia line, maintenance access near Retiro." She nodded once, no questions. They moved through the rain like ghosts, staying off main streets using tourist crowds as cover despite the late hour. Fernando knew these rhythms, where the cameras were, which alleys dead-ended, which buildings had fire escapes that actually worked. But his city felt foreign now. Every shadow could hide Elena's people. Every car could be a tale. They cut through Retiro Park, past the Palacio de Cristal glowing like a greenhouse of ghosts. Fernando's phone buzzed again, a voice message from a number he didn't recognize. He almost deleted it. Then he saw the timestamp, sent 30 seconds ago. Against his better judgment, he played it. Elena's voice poured into his ear like poison honey. "Fernando, my ama, are you listening? Good, I need you to understand something. I was never yours. I was never anyone's. I'm a ghost of the Cali cartel, the one your father thought he'd buried in 1997. Surprise, Carino, we remember everything." Anna was watching him, her expression unreadable. "The Lucero family burned my family's empire to ash, so I became ash, invisible, patient, and then I became your future." The maintenance access to the old aqueduct system was hidden behind a false wall in an abandoned Telefonica station. Fernando knew about it because his father had used these tunnels to move product in the 90s, back when the Lucero name meant something other than survival. Anna picked the lock in 8 seconds. Another question Fernando filed away. Inside, the tunnel stretched into darkness, the ghost of Franco-era infrastructure slowly returning to Earth. Their footsteps echoed on rusted catwalks suspended over dry channels. Fernando's phone buzzed again, this time a video call. Elena's face filled the screen, backlit by what looked like the interior of a tactical van. Her hair was pulled back now, severe, her makeup gone. She looked nothing like the woman who'd kissed him goodnight yesterday. "I thought you'd appreciate a proper explanation," she said. "Professional courtesy between monsters." "Carly's been dead for decades," Fernando said flatly. "The name died, the debt didn't." Elena's eyes were empty of anything resembling the love she'd performed so perfectly. "My mother was Paula Restrepo. Ring any bells?" She ran the European distribution for Carly until your father decided to eliminate the competition. He killed her in a Valencia hotel room and made it look like a suicide. Fernando's memory flickered. 1997, his father coming home with blood on his cufflinks, saying the Spanish operation was now entirely theirs. "I was 12, Elena continued, "old enough to remember, old enough to be trained by the people who wanted revenge but were smart enough to wait. We spent 25 years rebuilding in the shadows, and then we spent 3 years building me into exactly what you wanted, a woman who could love a killer." Anna stood motionless beside Fernando, her face unreadable. "The proposal on the cliff." Elena smiled. "I transmitted every security protocol you mentioned during your sentimental moment, the family dinners. I was mapping your entire organization's hierarchy. Every kiss was reconnaissance, Fernando. Every I love you was me getting closer to the kill." Fernando's voice came out like gravel. Why tell me this? Because I want you to die knowing you were loved by a lie. That's your one chance at redemption. Run, Anna said, already moving. They sprinted along the catwalk, the roar growing behind them like a living thing. Water crashed into the tunnel system, centuries of Madrid's underground architecture suddenly becoming a drowning chamber. There, Fernando pointed to a maintenance ladder 40 meters ahead. They wouldn't make it. The water was gaining too fast, a wall of black drowning howling through the dark. Anna suddenly veered right, toward a sealed doorway marked Peligro. She pulled something from her boot, a small explosive charge, the kind Interpol used for tactical entry. Cover your ears. The blast was deafening in the enclosed space. The door blew inward, revealing a secondary tunnel, older, narrower, sloping upward. They dove through as water exploded over the catwalk behind them, collapsing the rusted metal with a shriek of failing steel. The secondary tunnel was barely wide enough to move through, all crumbling brick and the smell of centuries. They climbed desperately, water nipping at their heels, until finally, they hit a junction that rose above the flood line. Fernando collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Anna was already checking the tunnel map on her phone. She downloaded city infrastructure blueprints, he realized, which meant she'd been preparing for this. "Who are you?" he asked. "Someone who knows what it's like to be hunted by people who have more resources than morals." She met his eyes. "Interpol, formerly, tactical analyst, Marseille operation 6 years ago. The one that went sideways. The one where I learned that sometimes the good guys get you killed, just as efficiently as the bad guys." Above them they heard motorcycles, at least 3 engines screaming through Madrid streets. Anna's expression hardened. "They're tracking your phone." Fernando looked at the device in his hand. Of course Elena had been tracking it. He'd probably been carrying the surveillance device to his own funeral for months. He crushed it under his heel. "The Retiro safe house," he said. "The one Elena doesn't know about. You said all your safe houses were compromised." "All the ones I told her about." Fernando allowed himself the ghost of a smile. "I may be sentimental, but I'm not stupid." Outside, the motorcycles were circling, hunting. Anna checked the clip of the gun she'd taken from a... The fortress wasn't a fortress at all. It was an abandoned metro station near Cuatro Caminos, sealed off in the 80s when the line was rerouted. Fernando's grandfather had won it in a card game from a city councilman and had used it to store contraband ever since. Elena's team would be expecting something obvious, a villa, a warehouse, something marked on property records. They wouldn't expect a ghost station full of Madrid's infrastructure bones. Fernando and Anna led them there deliberately, leaving just enough digital breadcrumbs. A burner phone activated near Plaza de España, a street camera catching Fernando's face near the old station entrance. The trail of a desperate man making mistakes. Elena took the bait. The motorcycles arrived first, 3 riders in tactical gear sweeping the perimeter. Then 2 SUVs, black and anonymous, disgorging contractors with American accents and expensive weapons. Finally, a Mercedes sedan. Elena stepped out wearing the same white suit she'd had on at the restaurant, now splattered with someone else's blood. Beside her came a man Fernando recognized from old DEA files, Marcus Restrepo, Paula's brother, the ghost of Carly's vengeance. They entered the station through the sealed entrance, their tactical lights cutting through decades of darkness. What they found was empty tunnel and the echo of their own footsteps. Then the lights went out. Fernando knew this station like a prayer. Every maintenance shaft, every electrical junction, every acoustic dead zone. He'd played here as a child while his grandfather conducted business, learning the geography of shadows. Now those shadows became weapons. The first contractor went down to Anna's precise headshot. She'd positioned herself in a ventilation shaft with perfect sight lines. The second fell when Fernando appeared from a maintenance tunnel, moved like the violence he'd always been, and disappeared before return fire could find him. Elena's voice echoed through the dark. "You think you can outrun me in the city you built? I know everything about you, Fernando." "You know what I told you," Fernando's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "You don't know what I kept." The hunt continued in the dark. Elena's team with superior numbers and firepower, Fernando and Anna with home field advantage and nothing left to lose. One by one the contractors fell. To bullets, to traps, to the architecture of revenge. Finally, only Elena and Marcus remained, standing back to back in the central platform, their lights sweeping desperately. Fernando stepped into their light, gun leveled, Anna covering him from the darkness. "It's over," he said. Elena smiled, even with defeat staring her in the face. "Is it? You think you can go back to your life after this? Everyone believes you're dead or dying. Your empire is already being carved up." "Good," Fernando said. The fire consumed the metro station with theatrical efficiency. Fernando had doused the place in diesel fuel before Elena's team arrived. If anyone came looking for bodies, they'd find ash and questions but no answers. The official story wrote itself. Fernando Lucero, Spanish crime lord, killed in gang violence along with his fiancée and several associates. The Lucero empire collapsed into infighting. Madrid's underworld would spend years sorting out the pieces. Fernando Lucero was dead. Long live whoever he'd become. 3 weeks later, a man with Portuguese papers and a Barcelona accent rented a villa in Mallorca. He had scars that told stories he never shared and eyes that had seen too much violence to ever fully close. Anna, now Anna Silva, according to her equally false documents, moved into the villa's guest house. She dyed her hair, traded her waitress uniform for linen and sundresses, learned to drink coffee on the terrace like someone who'd never analyzed cartel networks or killed men in metro tunnels. They didn't talk about Madrid, didn't talk about Elena or the bodies left behind, or what it meant that they'd survived when everyone else had burned. Some mornings, Fernando woke to find Anna already awake, watching the sunrise over the Mediterranean like she was memorizing the light in case the darkness came back. Some nights she'd hear him pacing the villa, unable to shake the habit of checking exits and counting threats that were no longer there. They were ghosts haunting each other's second chances. "Do you regret it?" Anna asked one evening, wine glass balanced on the terrace railing. "Letting the world think you're dead." Fernando considered this. His empire was gone, his name was buried. Elena's betrayal had incinerated everything he'd built, but he was alive. And the woman sitting across from him had thrown away her invisibility to save a monster she should have let die. "Every man dies," he said finally. "Not every man gets to choose which version of himself survives." Anna nodded, understanding in the way only someone who'd also burned their old life could understand. Below them, the sea crashed against Mallorca's cliffs, eternal and indifferent to the crimes of desperate people. Somewhere in Madrid, someone else was building an empire. Somewhere in the world, someone else was plotting revenge. Before you go, if this story moved you even a little, hit the like button, drop a comment, and follow the channel for more powerful stories like this. And I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Globe showing Europe, Africa. If this video gave you chills, share it with someone who needs to see it. Thank you for watching. Your support means everything.